Hello, everyone, and welcome to this evening's virtual presentation of Witness Theater, hosted by UJA-Federation of New York, Self-Help, and the Abraham Joshua Heschel School. I'm Lynn Wolitzer, and I am the Vice Chair of UJA's Community Initiative for Holocaust Survivors. Although tonight's presentation of Witness Theater will be coming to you from a computer screen, we know that you will be touched by this unique and special program. The survivor stories you will see portrayed by our students are just as meaningful and perhaps even more so as we deal with the COVID crisis. I've been involved with UJA for the past 5 years. And in fact, the program that first sparked my interest in UJA was Community Initiative for Holocaust Survivors. CIHS is dedicated to ensuring that the remaining survivors in New York, in Israel, and around the world are cared for and live out their final days with their basic needs met and with the dignity they so deserve. The deeply meaningful nature of this initiative and the fact that we can truly change the lives of survivors remains a powerful calling to me, and I hope it will affect you in a similar way. People are often surprised to learn that there are approximately 36,000 survivors living in the New York City area alone, 40% of whom live below the poverty line. They face loneliness, isolation, and so often have difficulty navigating the landscape of obtaining both funds and services to which they are entitled. CIHS each year raises funds to ensure that we continue to be the steadfast partner upon which survivors can rely. And although the number of survivors is decreasing, the care of this aging population will only continue to grow. As COVID-19 has changed the world as we know it, the needs of this special community remain. And in fact, the needs of many survivors have been amplified by the current crisis. To date, UJA has allocated more than $500,000 to help survivors in New York and in Israel. Here are some of the specific ways in which the funds we've raised are providing critical support. From the beginning, survivors were given emergency cash assistance for rent, medicine, and other basic needs. Healthcare aides, who often are the critical lifeline for survivors, were provided personal protective equipment and cab fare so they could protect themselves and avoid taking public transportation. From the earliest moments of lockdown until today, UJA, through our network of nonprofits, is coordinating home delivery of groceries and cooked meals for survivors who can't leave their homes. For survivors who rely on social interaction to brighten their days, we also made virtual programming available. Being home, often alone, it has been more important than ever for them to continue to engage with each other and with the outside world. These programs provided virtual community and enabled survivors to often find meaning and purpose despite being unable to attend the usual programs and community gatherings that we provide. During Passover, Self-Help hosted a virtual Seder so that survivors could celebrate the holiday together while safely staying in their own homes. Take Minna. At age 97, she visits the Washington Heights Y each day for a hot lunch. On Friday, she meets with her friends to celebrate Shabbat. When COVID-19 forced the Y to temporarily close its doors, Minna could no longer make the daily visits she so looked forward to. So when her visits were no longer possible, the Y sent a volunteer to deliver hot meals to Minna. A staff member from the Y calls Minna to check in on her and of course schmooze a bit. Her Shabbat group continues each week by phone, and as Minna herself said, hard times can really bring out the kindness in people. And so it's really up to our kindness to take care of survivors, to ensure that they live the end of their lives with the dignity they so deserve and the community they so crave. If you are able to make a gift to support this critical work, please do so. The link to donate will be posted in the chat and will be in the email that you will receive after the event. In the good times and in the more challenging times, UJA is there to care for those who need it most. I'm so grateful and proud to be part of the UJ community. It is now my honor to introduce Stuart Kaplan, CEO of Self-Help, to speak a little bit more about Witness Theater. We've been privileged to partner with Self-Help for the last 5 years to bring Witness Theater to New York. It is a deep source of pride for us to work with this premier agency to bring this meaningful program to life. The performances you will see are just the tip of the iceberg of how deeply Self-Help cares for our community's survivors. And we are so grateful for their dedication to this population. I hope you too will be moved by what you are about to see. I know we can all find inspiration in the strength and courage of survivors who lived through the very worst of times to go on and build beautiful lives, families, and communities. Stuart.
Well, thank you so much, Lynn. And it has been a tremendous partnership that we have had with UJA over these years, and we are very grateful for that. And I'm delighted to welcome everybody as well to this virtual adaptation of the 2020 Witness Theater, hosted through the Abraham Joshua Heschel School. Indeed, for those of you who have joined us in previous years, you know we typically do this in a auditorium setting where we were all together, but because of COVID-19, we needed to move to an adaptation, and the staff and therapists, survivors, and students have just been tremendous this year in their creativity for the production that you will see this evening. The production transforms the lives of Holocaust survivors and the high school students and thousands of audience members who have witnessed Witness Theater over the years. This indeed is the 8th year that Self-Help is producing, along with the generous support that has come year after year from UJA, as well as additional support that has been provided, and we are grateful to the Sephardic Home for the Aged Foundation, as well as Jewish Federations of North America, their Center for Holocaust Advancement of Care of the Survivors. Self-Help's primary mission is to provide services, social work services, care management, home care services, socialization to the 5,000 Holocaust survivors we are presently serving. But through Witness Theater, we are able to get closer to individuals. And this year, through several different productions, we are touching 30 students and 16 Holocaust survivers at locations and schools such as the Yeshiva of Flatbush, Joel Brovman High School, Abraham Joshua Heschel, of course, and other diverse schools around the city and in New Jersey this year. We had a production earlier this week at the Bishop Sheen Center, which is the performing center of the Archdiocese of New York. Through all of these productions, we, the audience, get to bear witness to the stories of resilience and the stories of survival. The 2 generations of high school students and Holocaust survivors inspire us. They inspire us as to the legacy of survival. They inspire us to honor the memory of those who perished. And they inspire us to increase awareness of the 36,000 Holocaust survivors that Lynn mentioned earlier that are here and amongst us right in the greater New York metropolitan area. So more than ever, we ask you this afternoon, this evening, to reflect on what is important, especially during these times, what is truly important in life, that no people, regardless of their race, religion, ethnicity, color, should be oppressed. We thank you for sharing this powerful experience with us today, and we hope you will enjoy this performance. Please be well and stay safe in these times. And it is now my pleasure to introduce Joy Radish, who is the extraordinary drama therapist who has helped to produce this evening's performance. Joy?
Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Joy Radish, and I've had the great honor of working with a group of tremendously gifted students, brilliant staff, and awe-inspiring Holocaust survivors for Witness Theater this year. What you are about to see is a film adaptation of an original play that the Witness Theater students were in the midst of rehearsing when the COVID-19 pandemic hit New York City in March. Our play was written after months of gathering stories and interviews, as well as sitting with, laughing with, exploring with, and sometimes crying with the 4 Holocaust survivors we've been getting to know since September. Just as our survivors taught us about the necessity of prevailing boldly, resiliently, and creatively through the harshest of circumstances, we felt inspired to prevail through the obstacles presented to us in order to bring this film to you. In March, when we learned that we would not be able to perform our play for a live audience or even be in the same room with each other, we were faced with a quandary. If we gave up on the play, could we sit with the feelings that we put in a good effort while we could, knowing that the process was incomplete? For us, the answer was a resounding no. Collectively, we felt a strong impulse, even an obligation to our survivors. It didn't feel like enough for us to simply be keepers of their stories. It felt imperative to also be speakers of these stories. And after all, if our survivors made it through the Holocaust, certainly we could find a way for our piece of art to survive the COVID-19 pandemic. During one of our Witness Theater sessions, Renee Slotkin, one of our survivors, shared a wish for us to not only understand what he and his family went through intellectually, he wanted us to really get it on a visceral level. I believe this kind of visceral understanding, becoming truly open and available to be touched by someone's pain, as well as their joy, is what unites us, allows us to heal collectively, and inspires us to stand up against injustice. In our film, we have done our best to encapsulate the essence of what our survivors went through, knowing that we could not possibly convey the magnitude of their experiences in this format. So for the record, our film is not a documentary. It is an artful retelling. During a time when so many people are living in isolation and so many are experiencing great upheavals and turmoil, we hope that our little film offers you a moment to connect with the wisdom, joy, and pain of our elders and give you a deeper understanding of the experience of surviving against great odds. Thank you so much for tuning in and for being with us. And without further ado, I invite you to witness our film, Essential Stories.
Ahem. Everybody ready?
Children, grandchildren, parents, siblings, and friends. We come to you live from our bedrooms, our kitchens, and our living rooms with this broadcast of Witness Theater, Essential Stories.
In this broadcast, we aim to honor the lives of the 4 brave, bold, kind, and intelligent elders who have opened up their hearts to us, telling us about their lives as well as how each of them survived the Holocaust.
The 6 of us have worked very, very hard to portray all of the different essential roles and characters in each of the elders' stories. In these stories, we played mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, prisoners in concentration camps, benevolent friends who risked their lives to save us.
We play nurses, doctors, adoptive parents, kind neighbors, and relatives of relatives who helped aid in the healing process.
We also play soldiers, Nazis, and bystanders, who, by following orders, murdered our relatives, friends, and neighbors.
Now, as we take on these roles, we want to introduce you to the 4 elders themselves.
Why, hello there. My name is Renee Slotkin.
I feel every detail of this thing is important so that the world, you are part of the world now. You are the people who we're talking to. We are the witnesses. And everything that we say, you should really tuck into the back of your mind and don't let it out.
My name is George Klein.
My mother saved me over and over on daily basis. She probably knew that I remembered what I remembered, but we never talked about it. I never told my story. I never talked about these things. This is new.
Who, me? My name is Simone Waldman.
I have spent my life trying to understand the Holocaust, and I will never understand. The fact is, it is impossible to make sense of what happened. Human barbarity. You want to know how we survive in my family? Let me tell you, honey. Makom, Shman, Lazot. We were in the right place, at the right time, and we took the right action. In another word, darling, just luck.
Hello, my name is Carla Hanauer.
Once I was visiting a museum in Montreal showing the city's history. I saw the date prominently displayed, a very large May 5, and was thus reminded of it being Liberation Day in Holland. I wandered into the exhibit and became transfixed by a video of the Canadian soldiers going into war, not once, but twice. Suddenly, I remember them holding me up on their shoulders to celebrate during liberation. I was just 3 years old, and all I wanted to do was go into that video and thank someone.
Back in September, when we started this project, we never thought we would be coming to you through Zoom.
And though the coronavirus pandemic stopped us right at the middle of our rehearsal process, we knew we still had a responsibility to bring these stories to you.
So sit back, relax, and listen with your heart.
We need you to be our witness.
You know what is funny about memories that always strikes me? I have very early memories starting from my cradle. There were always people gathered around, especially around my mother. She loved people. Yet somehow, I always felt separate.
Nothing is happening, Joseph. Stop worrying them with this talk.
I'm telling you, things are getting worse for the Jews. Polly, you're too much of an optimist.
Papa, it's okay.
This is Paris, Joseph. We are not still in Poland.
Thank goodness.
I'm telling you, even France is changing.
We are safe, Joseph. We are French citizens now.
But nevertheless.
Enough. There is work to be done, and we are fine. And Simone and Albert need to get to school.
Simone? Simone? Simone, you're bothering Papa with this noise. It's time to go to school.
Well, if I must, I must.
Before the war, things were fine. In France, anyway. In Paris, we were all in the street, all the children. Let's say there was not a lot of supervision.
Simone, you're going to be late for school. Simone.
Yes, Janine?
Oh, you're impossible. You need to keep walking, and you need to pay better attention. Stay right here.
Okay, Janine, whatever you say, Janine.
Hi, Simone.
Hi, Simone.
I would hide if I were you.
'Cause the plague is coming through.
1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 2.
Now the plague has spotted you.
Yet, as we continued to play over those next few years, the atmosphere began to change, not for the better. You could feel the ominous presence of the French police.
I would hide if I were you.
German soldiers coming through.
1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 2.
Now I think they've spotted you.
I would hide if I were you.
German soldiers coming through.
1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 2.
Now I think I found a Jew.
They made us wear yellow stars that marked us as Jews. Eventually, we knew that even Jewish women and children were not safe from the wrath of the Nazis.
Come with me, children. You can stay, French citizen. The Vel d'Hiv Roundup. We begin the mass arrests of Jews in Paris, confining them and shipping them in cattle cars to Auschwitz. This time we got women and children as well as men. Some say up to 13,000 in about 24 hours.
I'm telling you, Papa, they're taking children too.
That's it. I cannot watch them take that child. I'm going to City Hall, and to hell with them if they want to arrest me. I cannot stand by and watch this happen.
Paula, that's not safe.
Nonsense, Joseph. We'll be fine.
For now, Mama, but not for long.
I'm gonna go find Cousin Esther. She's not a citizen, and I know the police will get to her if we don't get to her first.
Maurice, you will stay right here.
I know how we can get fake documentation that will help us get to the south of France.
It's a plan.
Simone, are you scared?
Me? No, I'm not scared.
The plan is for you to keep going to school and keep looking after Albert until we call for you.
Okay, I'll keep going to school.
And please wear your star for dear sake.
Okay, I will. And that was the last time the whole family was together for a long while. My mother and my father continued to work in their grocery store, though not for long.
Monsieur Waldman, that would be you, I suppose?
Yes, I'm Joseph Waldman.
And you must be the wife. I've come to inform you that your names are on the list of Jews who will be arrested later tonight.
Can we help you with something else, sir?
By the way, I would hide if I were you.
1, 2, 3.
Ride!
Even though it was a false alarm, my parents suddenly understood that it was time for me and Albert to get out of Paris. Janine had a plan just for that.
Listen, my dear, our beloved old grandmama is going to escort you and Albert to find us in the center of France in a lovely town. You must be on your best behavior, if you know what I mean. See you soon.
From now on, my name is Simone Valance. I'm no longer Simone Waldman. Understand? Janine had somehow arranged for us to travel by train with formidable Madame Mouton, an elder French woman who was to see us to safety. Oh, you should have seen her big gray bonne. She had the correct papers, and of course she was not Jewish.
Come, my children, the train is about to leave.
And so Albert and I were reunited with Janine and Maurice in the town of Jodzeig, home for now. And here we were, free to go about our lives, until we weren't.
The Germans are coming.
Ride!
And then suddenly we were up in the French Alps, and the town of Grenoble was home. Life was somewhat normal, whatever that is. The Germans are coming!
Ride!
Now it's Village Alarms, where suddenly I'm in a girls' school. Can you believe it? We were all Jewish, but didn't dare say.
This time the Germans really are coming.
And my parents were in grave danger.
Family. This is when we risk it all.
I don't know how she did it, my sister Janine. But somehow, she found a house in the middle of nowhere, France, and was determined to bring our whole family there, no matter how risky the journey. Maurice and I went first. Then Janine crossed the border to fetch my mother and little Albert, successfully brought them to us. Finally, she went back to get my father. It was a close call that time, yet somehow they made it back to us, and we were safe. Our money had run out. We didn't have much, but we did have luck. We had each other. Liberation! We returned to Paris, and when we got to our apartment, guess what? Our downstairs neighbor was living there as if it was hers. She said she liked the layout better up there. Eventually, we reclaimed it. Still, we had nothing. We had to start all over again. We're in this place called home, but home had changed for everyone. And as for me, let's just say there wasn't a lot of room for young Simone. For the next 4 years, I had no room to call my own. So I slept wherever someone had a place for me. I was, as you might say, a wandering Jew, always hoping to be in the right place at the right time.
I found a new place to call home when I came to America in 1961. And I did many things, searching and searching. One thing I'll tell you, in all my life I have never been bored. I returned to music when I was in my 60s. Finally, you say? Yes, finally. Finally I came back to my true home, and with music I will never be alone again.
I had no idea that I was going to be selected to tell anything tonight. I felt I'm close enough to you, and you're close enough to me to see my mother and myself and my sister way back when, so that the world, you are part of the world now. You are the people who we're talking to. We're the witnesses.
Renata and I were born on December 21st, 1937. We were twins. She was half an hour older than me, which explains many things. She always kind of led the way.
1, 2, 3. Catch me if you can.
Slow down, Renee, you're going to fall.
This picture, this moment, I don't remember it happening, but it fills me with such happiness. Those are my parents, Herbert and Ita Gutmann. They lived in Dresden until the anti-Semitism became too much. They then fled to Czechoslovakia in 1939, when we were almost 2. Look at them. Aren't they lovely? But soon, the Germans occupied Prague, and happiness was not in store for my parents, or for any of us, really. The Nazis came for my father and took him from us in 1939. We never saw him again.
Papa?
Shh.
I can't imagine what my mother was feeling. I can't imagine what she would have told us. Soon, the Nazis came for my mother, my sister, and I. We were taken to the Theresienstadt ghetto with thousands of other Jews and put in a family camp. They wanted to convince us that we were going to a good place. Some Nazis even described Theresienstadt as a spa town.
Never fear. You'll love it here. You'll have your dear ones gathered near. Don't need to know where next you'll go. Just smile big. You're in a show.
I'm frightened, Mama.
I know, my love.
Me too, Mama.
I know, darling, I know.
Look here and smile for the camera.
Mama?
Hush, my love.
I love you.
I love you too.
1, 2, 3.
I still remember the smell of her coat and how safe it felt being cuddled up next to her. They then sent us to Auschwitz in December of '43 and again put us in family camp where Renata, my mother, and I were still together at first, but no one knew what was going to happen. We didn't hear rumors, and then...
Children, do you know what tonight is?
It's a very important night.
Night is Erev Purim.
Purim, Purim!
Tonight, Jews all over the world read from the Megillah. Do you know what story that is?
Is it the story of Queen Esther?
That's right, my love.
We don't have wine, and we don't have masks, but we do have our stories.
And each other.
Now, let's rehearse something. When we say the name of a terrible villain, we want to shame him for what he did to the Jews.
We never want to hear his name without a lot of other noise.
Children, do you remember his name?
I'll give you a clue. It rhymes with Damon. I want you all to stamp your feet, but quietly, so the soldiers can't hear. But you out there, I want you to stamp your feet as loud as you can. And I want you to use your voices and say, boo! Now, let's try, okay?
Okay.
And then one day, Mordecai, Esther's cousin, tells her that a very evil Haman ordered that on the 13th day of Adar, all Jews would be killed.
So Esther decides she must reveal the horrible plan to the king, and she thinks of a way to expose the evil.
And on that night of Erev Purim, nothing would ever be the same.
Everybody stand up and face out.
Mama?
I said stand.
Auschwitz had its own uber villain, famous for these so-called medical experiments that he performed on children and twins. He was ruthless. They called him by many names, the monster of Auschwitz, the angel of death, yet let's not honor him here. My friends, when you hear his name, please give him the same treatment as Haman.
Twins line up next to each other. You are under orders to report to the great doctor, Joseph Meng.
No, please.
Ladies, step back. Step back. Dr. Joseph Meng has called for the twins.
That was the last time I saw my mother. She was killed by the Nazis later that night.
Renee, don't cry. Don't say anything. Just do what they say. Please, Renee, please.
That night, Renata became mute and never spoke again the entire time she was in Auschwitz. They split us up by gender. Renata went with the girl twins, and I went with the boys.
I can take over now. See, the first actual memories I have as a child were of seeing the evil Dr. M. He measured me and analyzed my blood, and I was kept in a logger with all the male twins. The camp really was full of horrors, yet there were some good too. Once, 2 older twin boys decided I was too small to fend for myself. Those boys became my protectors. I don't know how they did it, but one day, they gave me a pair of boots, warm brown boots that they somehow got from the black market in Auschwitz. It warmed my feet and it warmed my heart. Now I bet you might be wondering about Renata. Well, there was only one time we saw each other. It was when they were moving her logger. I remember seeing this familiar figure through the wire fence, and in that moment, we knew we belonged to each other. That's my twin.
That's my Renee.
That's my Renata. And somehow I knew we would be reunited one day. And maybe, just maybe, that was the hope I needed to keep myself going.
Now, I just want to intervene for a moment to say, there is good in this world, and there is good in my story. I may have been a Mengele twin, but I'm also much, much more. I didn't have to seek the good. The good found me. Don't give up on this story.
Liberation? Oh, it was horrible. The Nazis wanted to get rid of evidence of everything that had gone on in Auschwitz, including all the prisoners who survived. So they had what they called a death march. We marched on the road through the harshest conditions. Some of the prisoners were too weak and too sick to make it. But somehow I made it. For me, this march brought me to the next part of my life.
My dear, what you've been through, you need some time to recover.
And I did recover, up in the beautiful Carpathian Mountains where I lived in an orphanage run by some very wonderful nuns.
Remember that I told you there were many good people? Many heroes? Well, here comes one.
Hi there, Renee.
Oh, hi, Dr. Kalina. Thanks for visiting me.
Of course, Renee. I want to ask you something. How would you like to come home with me and live with my family?
But, as fate would have it, Dr. Kalina had to leave Czechoslovakia, fleeing the communists, and went to Israel. He left me with his sister Edith Mann, who also loved me very much. Meanwhile, a lot was happening for Renata. After the death march, she spent some time living with a Polish woman who changed her name from Renata to Irenka and sent her to a Catholic school. Now, several organizations were trying to do something for the Jewish orphans who had survived the war. That's when Irene was taken to a home for Jewish children in France. And while she was there, she was chosen to represent the war orphans of Europe for a tour of the United States by an organization called Rescue Children. When Renata came to New York City, she was photographed for a story in Life magazine about the efforts to give Jewish war orphans the experience of life in America. Oh yes, and in America, she started to go by the name Irene.
Ready, Irene? 1, 2, 3.
By the way, Irene had begun to speak again, and she learned to speak in English. Yet, well, I had the Kalinas and Edith Mann. Irene had yet to find a home where she was wanted as family. That all changed when Mr. and Mrs. Slotkin entered the scene.
Irene, come. We want you to stay with us.
We want to give you a home.
Everything you've never had. Safety.
Family.
A chance to feel what it's like to have a mother and father and an older sister.
I have a brother. His name is Renee.
Irene, we will find Renee.
Enter another hero, Mr. Enright. I think I'll play him for today. Mr. Enright, at your service. How can I be of help?
Mr. Enright, there's a Jewish war orphan by the name of Renee Gutman who needs to be found and brought to us. We have adopted his sister, Irene, and we wish to adopt him too. We don't care how much this costs.
Mr. Slotkin, I will do whatever it takes. I will find this young Renee, and I will deliver him to you safely. After many twists and many turns, Mr. Enright did indeed travel to Europe and make it to the home of Edith Mann, where he did find little Renee Gutman safe and sound.
Who are you?
My dear Renee, my name is Maurice Enright. I have come all this way to Europe to find you and take you home to your sister, Irene.
In America?
Yes, Renee. America. To a place called Long Island. Mr. and Mrs. Slotkin, who've adopted your sister, want to adopt you too. What do you say, Renee?
Renata. Renata. Renata!
And that's how I came to America.
New York City.
Renee? Renee, is that really you?
Hello, Mrs. Slotkin.
Welcome home, Renee. Welcome home. There's someone who has been waiting to see you for a very long time.
When we pulled up into the driveway, I saw a familiar figure.
Could it be?
Is it you?
Renata!
Renee.
I told you, there's a lot of good in this world.
I was a hidden child, and many of the details of my childhood, well, they were hidden too. So year after year, it's like these missing pieces come out of hiding when Willem tells me about wartime events during my visits as an adult.
Welcome, my friends, to the story of Carla and her family. Carla's story begins on the steps of St. Elizabeth Hospital in Delden, Holland, 1945. Carla, age 3, and her sister Helga, age 5, sit at the top of the steps.
Oh, this is my favorite memory. You see, there were these 2 lanes that led to the steps, and suddenly we saw a man begin to approach, making his way towards one of the lanes where we were.
Stop fussing, Carla, and sit. That's a stranger down there. A stranger.
Yet little Carla does not listen to her sister. She walks down the steps, right into the arms of a mysterious man, who, it turns out, is her father, Gustav.
This must be my baby. Oh, Carla, oh my dear, how I've missed you so.
I couldn't believe it. It was my own father. We had been separated for 3 years since we were put into hiding, but somehow I knew it was him. This memory just makes me so happy.
I am so glad we have this opportunity where we can help you share these memories, Carla.
Willem is a very important person to my family and to me. He was my father's best friend. They were both merchants together after my father came to Holland.
Do you remember how he came to Holland? He rode his bicycle here all the way from Lingen, Germany in 1939, right after Kristallnacht. His brother was in the hospital recuperating from an operation when the Nazis barged in, threw him to the ground,
and he died.
So then Gustav, that's your father, he reinvents his life in Enschede, buying and selling hides and skins and sheep's wool.
And honey in the summertime.
Yes, he marries your mother Thea. They have Helga in 1940, and then in 1942 they have you.
That's when things were getting really bad for the Jews.
Let's tell everyone about how your dear parents got you and Helga into hiding, Carla. Ready? Scene. A cafe somewhere in the Dutch countryside. The year is 1942. The Jews, burdened by decrees and fines, had been stripped of their livelihoods. They started disappearing and being deported. Your parents knew they had to hide, or else it would just be a matter of time before the Nazis found you all. They were desperate, and they didn't know who to trust. Yet something led them to the sisters.
At the convent in Delden.
That's correct. And here's how your father told me the story. Enter none.
Mr. Hanauer, we'll hide your daughters, but only if you and your wife find a place to hide for yourselves first.
Sister, we have nowhere to go. There's no one to hide us. Please, I beg of you.
I'm sorry, we just can't take your daughters unless you are also safe.
Your father was usually a quiet man, but after a couple of beers, suddenly his tongue came loose and all his fears came out.
We need a miracle, Willem. I don't know what else to do.
So what do you do when you don't know what else to do, and it's 1942, and the Nazis will come for you any minute? You take a bike ride. Ready, Gustav? Scene. Riding in the countryside. We rode, and soon came upon the farm of a friend of mine. Some character. That guy.
Hello, Willem. Then who is this nice man?
He's a Jew from Germany. I cannot tell you how scared he is. He and his wife need a place to hide from the Nazis.
Well, I'm not even scared of the devil. Let them hide here.
Here? Where? In your house?
Let them stay in the house for now. And if worse comes to worse, we'll do what we have to do.
So Gustav and Thea left their daughters with the good nuns and went to hide in the farmer's house. And that's how it was for the next 3 years. When the Germans got ruthless towards the end of the war, Gustav and Thea needed a better place to hide. So the brave farmer hid them in a hole in the ground in a nearby meadow, and in the end, Gustav was hidden on a munition boat. Yet, a very unexpected thing occurred while Gustav and Thea were in hiding. Thea became pregnant, and she was brought by horse and wagon to a hospital in a nearby town. She gave birth in late winter under a false name. We will return to this chapter of the story later. What you should know now is that the baby survived, and after she gave birth, Saya came to stay with me and my wife until
Liberation! Now this part of the story, this is my own memory. I remember the Canadian soldiers hoisted us up onto their shoulders and cheered. There was so much celebration happening everywhere, so much happiness. Of course, I was only 3, but I remember they gave me chocolate, lots of chocolate. And then...
I'll tell this part, Carla. Then we reunited with Mother and Father and moved back to Engine Day. We had nothing and had to start all over. You started school there in 1948. You were the only Jewish child in your class. Father was able to work again, and Mother gave birth to your little brothers. Life went on, yes, but everyone was changed by the war. You finished high school in 1959 and worked helping Father with his business in Lincoln, his hometown.
Those lines in Leviticus, just balances, just weights, a just far you shall have. That was my father, a man who in business personified honesty. Oh, he taught me so much.
Carla, can you please pay attention? Always reading and dreaming.
I head east along Rivington Street. All is cheerful and crowded. Small shops overflow onto the sidewalk. Oh, to be in New York City.
New York seemed to work its way into your dreams, Carla. When you saw that newspaper ad in search of a German-speaking au pair, that became, as you Americans say, your ticket to the Big Apple.
Yet no matter how true a New Yorker I've become, I'm drawn back time and time again to visit Enschede and the wonderful people there. This includes the nuns in Delden and Helga and my father and my mother, and of course you too, Willem.
And there's one more person, Carla, who plays a very important role in this story. Though it would take many years for you to reunite, let's return to this memory, Carla. You're ready.
Hello, Carla.
Stephanie, is it really you?
Carla? Dear, it's wonderful to hear your voice.
I can't believe you're calling all the way from Australia. Tell me, Stephanie, what was it like growing up there?
Dear Carla, there's just so much to tell. Dr. Panhausen, my adoptive father, helped to save my life when our mother gave birth prematurely. And the rest, well, I wish I could tell you in person.
Oh, that would be so wonderful, Stephanie. I wonder, Stephanie, would you ever want to visit me in New York?
Scene. Stephanie and her family come to New York City to visit Carla all the way from Australia. Carla takes Stephanie all over town, to Soho, wherever that is, and to all of the art museums. Stephanie loves art. And the sisters come to realize that they like each other very much. Right before Stephanie and her family leave for their next destination, Carla asks her a very important question.
Stephanie, before you go, I wonder, there's a new exhibit at the Jewish Museum. Would you like to go?
No, Carla. I don't want to visit the Jewish Museum. Sorry.
And in that moment, awash with memories of what her parents had endured when they were in hiding, Carla burst into tears. A couple of weeks after Stephanie's departure, a letter came to Carla's home. It was from Stephanie's son, Morgan. Dear Carla.
It was so wonderful to finally get to meet you and see New York City. Thank you for having us. I want to let you know that when we got to Los Angeles, my mother decided that we should all visit the Simon Wiesenthal Center to see the Holocaust exhibit. It was a fitting end to this very important journey. Yours, Morgan.
It turns out that this was just the first of many visits you would have with Stephanie, my dear Carla. And you will be happy to know that over the years you have become not only a part of each other's lives, but a part of each other's families.
Thank you, Willem. Thank you. Thank you.
I remember everything.
I'm not surprised. You were always a smart kid.
And there are memories I wish I did not have.
I did my best to shield you.
But I never talk about them.
Well, maybe it's finally time to talk.
There is so much to share and so much to remember.
Tonight, I am glad to share with you the story of my son George Klein and my wife Hilda Klein. It's a story that I was part of only in the beginning, yet I'm glad that I can help to tell it to you now. We begin with a scene in our pharmacy, where young George has been missing all afternoon.
Mama! Papa! Hi, Mama.
George, my dear, I was starting to worry. It's almost supper time. Where did you take him, Fraulein?
Oh, we just went for a little fun and dancing, Mrs. Klein. It was nothing, and besides, he can pass.
Never to take him there again. Do you understand? A little Jewish boy should not be out dancing with those soldiers.
Although Slovakia had always known anti-Semitism, the situation for the Jews became grim during the war years.
George Klein? Is George Klein in school today?
Here I am, sir. Did I do something wrong?
Oh, not really, George Klein. It's not your fault. Here in Slovakia, we are employing a set of laws more severe than the Germans ever had to combat the Jewish problem. Citizens, you will no longer be forced to deal with any Jews in public office or in business. Oh, and they will no longer be a bother to your little ones in school.
That day, we heard a knock at the door.
Mrs. Klein? Mr. Klein? Good day.
Sir, what is going on here?
Mrs. Klein, this should not come as a surprise to you.
You said I can't go to school anymore because I'm a Jew. Is it true?
Sir, be on your way now.
Just following orders, Mrs. Klein.
It's time to leave.
It's time. Listen, George, now that they've closed our pharmacy, your father and I need to leave town for a while in order to find work. For the time being, you'll stay here with the Skadanis.
When can I go back to school, Mama?
I don't know, George. I don't know. You have plenty of courage, I'm sure, answered Oz. All you need is confidence in yourself. There is no living thing that is not afraid when it faces danger. The true courage is in facing danger when you are afraid, and that kind of courage you have in plenty.
Do you have courage, Mama?
Well, I should hope so, George.
What about Papa?
Your father most definitely has courage.
What about me?
What do you think, George? Do you think you have courage?
I hope I do, Mama. I hope I do.
You know what gives you courage?
What, Papa? Chocolate!
Hilda, do you think we're safe here?
I don't know, Oscar. I don't know.
Mama! Mama! Papa! Papa!
George, there you are.
What is it, George?
Shh, it's all right. It's all right.
It's them. It's them.
It's who, Georgie? What are you talking about?
Them.
Okay, George. One thing at a time. Where were you?
I was playing near the village, and I saw them.
Who, George? Who did you see?
The Germans. The soldiers.
Stay here with your mother. I'm gonna make sure everything's okay.
Oscar, I'm worried.
It's all right, Hilda.
Be safe.
I left Hilda and George to investigate. I didn't get very far. This was the last time I would see my Hilda and my George.
When is Papa coming back?
I don't know, George. I don't know. George, I need you to stand up.
What? What's going on, Mama?
We need to hide now, George.
What about Papa? Where's Papa?
I'm here now, George. Stay still.
Hilda helped George hide behind a couch and crouched down behind him. A German soldier briskly entered the house and looked around suspiciously, seeing no one.
I advise you, give yourselves up and make this easier on all of us.
And just then, the top of George's head peeking up from behind the couch gave him away.
I knew it. Stand up!
No, I beg of you. Do not hurt my child.
Ma'am, what are you doing? Move! Move, I say!
You can do what you will to me, but do not hurt my child.
The soldier took a small step back, and in that moment, the smallest bit of compassion seemed to leak into his heart.
Go gather your belongings. Change your clothes if you need. The boy will be safe. I promise.
Hilda went to gather their belongings, and the soldier kept his promise.
Come now. It's time.
Where are we going, Mama?
We will be okay, George. It doesn't matter.
But, Mama...
First, they locked Hilda and George up in a Slovak prison. Then they shipped them out to Bergen-Belsen, where George became very ill.
I have food for everyone.
Goodness, thank goodness.
Thank goodness for you, Hilda Klein.
George, how are you feeling? Open your mouth, George. Open your mouth. You must try and eat this.
Hilda, come eat with us. Seems like you haven't eaten for days and days.
I was sick the entire time we were in Bergen-Belsen. I hardly knew what was real and what were hallucinations. Only the constant fear persisted. All of it I felt like a bad dream. What I do know is that my mother was taking care of me continuously and saved me over and over and over again. I don't know how she did it.
Give me the cup of water.
What are you giving him?
Vitamins.
What? How?
From our pharmacy. I've been hiding them ever since we left.
Of course, George did not remember much of this, for he was consumed by feverish dreams. Okay, George, guess which hand? Very good, George, very good.
For me?
Of course.
Yay!
I love you, my son.
Hilda, what happened? Who did this to you?
Let's sit her down and get her some water, quick. She said she was going to get more food for George. I told her it was too dangerous, but she insisted.
George. George. This is a message from your future self. I know you won't remember this when you wake up, so I'm going to tell you some important things, and I hope you feel it in your heart. Somehow, you're going to be all right. And so is Mom. You're both going to be all right. None of this is your fault, and I know you might struggle with that, but it's not your fault. Well, I may as well tell you something about your future. I don't want to give too much away, but when you finally learn to read, you'll be 10 years old by that time. And there will be no stopping you from there. And not if, but when you get to America, you will know more about the American literature than all the Americans themselves. No kidding. But let's stay practical and not get too far ahead of ourselves. It's time to wake up, George.
Wake up, darling. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Well, hello there.
What's going on? What's happening?
It's all right, sweetheart. Everything's all right. The camps have been liberated. You're free.
Where's Mama?
She's okay. She's not feeling well, so some of the doctors are looking after her.
Can I see her?
Of course. But first we have to get you up and walking again. Your muscles got used to being in bed all this time. You have a lot of life ahead of you, George, and lots of chocolate to eat.
Thank you. After the war, I was still very weak. They sent me to a sanatorium in the Tatra Mountains, where it took me 2 years to fully recover. My mother managed to open another pharmacy nearby so she could be close to me. Can you tell by now how brilliant she was?
I can hear you if you didn't already know that. George, there's no need to brag.
Oh. And by the way, I did learn to read and write when I was 10. And then I went to medical school. I graduated in 1962. But don't worry, I had plenty of time for fun. I mean, it's funny. When I was in high school, we were all obsessed with Dixieland music. We would play it everywhere. Perhaps this was some kind of dream, the American dream we were experiencing. And well, I never made it to Dixieland per se, but I did make it to California, where I danced with Elizabeth Taylor. And later I moved to New York.
George, don't worry about me. I don't need to see anything exciting in America. And besides, you have to get up for work in the morning.
Mama, I think we both worked hard enough. Let's have some fun.
George.
Come on, Mama.
Go ahead, Hilda. Go ahead, George.
Oh, maybe just this once, George.
Dr. Klein, I'm so glad you made it. And this must be your mother.
Yes, this is my mother, Hilda. Let's dance, Mama. Let's dance.
Thank you for being our witness. This has been an emotional process for all of us, especially with everything that has been going on in the world. However, we pushed through because we knew that these stories have to be shared. We must raise awareness about the realities of genocide, discrimination, and anti-Semitism.
During my homeschooling, I realized more than ever how fortunate I am to have available resources allowing me to endure such uncertain times. Family, shelter, and technology, to name a few. Our 4 older friends lacked any of these and so much more while experiencing the brutality in concentration camps and ghettos. Gaining the knowledge and details of their history has been difficult but quite valuable. I have never felt more compelled to open up than I have during this journey.
The adults we are honoring had friends and family die and perish in the Holocaust, yet we were still able to hear their stories. We were able to hear how George's dad gave him chocolate and how Renee's mother was still there to comfort her children even after her husband had been arrested and killed. We also learned about the experience of survivors after the war that isn't talked about as much. Carla's family were victims of anti-Semitic taunting once they moved back to their house, and Simone's apartment was claimed by her neighbors. It has been a pleasure to get to know these 4 seniors in New York City and each of their distinctive personalities. It's been a great privilege to get to know them and keep their stories alive.
I am so thankful to have been part of an experience that has connected me to the stories of Holocaust survivors on a much deeper level than I've ever experienced in or outside of the classroom. I am very grateful to have been given the opportunity to help bring these survivors' stories to life.
To the viewers of our project, remember that while the world may seem crazy, especially these days, there is hope to be had for a better future and for a better world.
And to our 4 adults, thank you for everything you've taught us. I've been blessed with this experience. You're so admirable and so inspirational. You've given me a new perspective on life, which is my new ability to stand up for my Jewish values, to be the best version of myself.
I want to thank our dear adults for opening up and sharing their powerful stories with us. Because of them, I have a greater sense of gratitude and understanding of my personal responsibility to share the stories of Carla, Renee, Simone, and George, to honor what they went through and their unwavering strength and perseverance throughout their lives.
What a beautiful example of the healing power of intergenerational relationships and triumph over adversity. Thank you so much to our partners tonight, Self-Help and Heschel, who helped make this program so meaningful despite COVID-19. To the survivors who participated, Renee, Simone, George, and Carla, we are grateful for your willingness to participate and tell these tough stories. You're helping ensure that your legacy will never be forgotten, and in today's fractured world, your ability to heal gives us all hope for the future. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. My name is Stacy Barber, and I am a co-chair of UJA's Community Initiative for Holocaust Survivors, as well as the co-chair of the UJA-Federation of North America's National Initiative for Holocaust Survivors, and I'm a board member at Self-Help and at UJA. So I crossed all lines here. In the best of times, these survivors are facing a difficult aging process compounded by the trauma of their early life. Today, many survivors are being re-traumatized during the COVID-19 pandemic as they experience difficulty accessing food and the need to remain hidden or locked away in their homes. UJA is committed to being there for these survivors during the good times and the bad until the last one turns to us for help. Witness Theater is just one of the ways UJA and Self-Help are supporting survivors during this difficult time, providing an outlet for expression, friendship, and socialization. I just want to say I've seen all 3 performances of Witness Theater this year by the 3 separate groups. And you can too, if you'd like, by going onto Self-Help's website or to YouTube. As a dual board member, I'd like to thank again the students, the survivors, Joy, who brought this group together and kept it together, and the Self-Help staff for making these memories for us all. It's just so important. If you'd like to learn more about helping Holocaust survivors, please contact Anat Barber, who directs our Community Initiative for Holocaust Survivors at UJA. She's going to put her information into the chat, and you'll probably get it by email tomorrow as well. Finally, thank you again for joining us, and if you can, please support survivors as generously as you are able to by making a gift to UJA and to CIHS. Thank you so much for your partnership and have a great evening. Thank you.